Let's hope that everything works on the other side on Google. Google, what am I saying?
On the YouTubes.
On the YouTubes. Oh, look, I see myself. So fantastic. It did actually work. That's the smoothest this has ever gone for me when I've done a webinar. So really happy to hear that. And my camera's just decided to go out of focus, but that's odd. Oh, here we go. So we're going to wait for a couple minutes for everyone to join. Thank you, everyone who's already here. So we'll just be a couple minutes, then we'll kick straight off. We'll just give people a chance to join in on the webinar. And if you're already here, feel free to drop any comments in, where you're from, and what you're looking to get out of this. That'll also be nice. And I'll make sure I can actually see comments. I hope I can, because that would be interesting if I can't. Let's see. We've never done with YouTube before, and we had so many signups. I had to change platforms. Okay. I don't know how to see if there's any comments right now, but I'm hoping that I will at some point. We have 54 people here. We're starting in, it tells me 86 seconds till actual start. But I think what we're going to do is, I'm really sad I can't see any comments. Is anyone writing in the comments? Is that a thing? Can anyone else see? We're just going to play with the tech for a minute, everyone.
Yeah, there's a lot of comments.
Oh,
the chat works.
I can't see the chat. How do you see the chat?
I'm just on your YouTube.
You joined the live chat.
Yes.
Guys. Okay, so everyone's there. Thank goodness. I was like, is no one going to talk? That's terrible. 800 in the room and everyone's quiet. Okay, so that's not the case. We are actually, in fact, got what we need to have there. Great. Then we are ready to kick off. So thank you, everyone. Please, as you're joining, like I said, drop your name. Well, you don't have to drop your name. Where are you calling in from? Calling in? Dialing in? What do you say now? Dropping in from around the world. And yeah, what are you hoping to get out of this? Thank you so much again for everyone joining. I really appreciate the time. We're going to start right now and get straight into it. Today, we are here with Paul Karrmann. He's our expert, n8n expert for HR. He's fantastic. I'm so happy to hear from him, and I'm so happy he joined us today. So thanks, Paul, for joining.
Of course. Happy to be here.
And of course, we have Shirley from Shapes, who's our sponsor today, making sure that this can come to you guys. So thank you so much, Shirley, for joining. We're going to hear a little bit from you soon.
Hey, everyone. It's great to be here.
And what we're going to do is a run through today. We're going to have a little bit of a snippet from Shirley soon around Shapes and what they've got in terms of product features coming out and really interesting things that I think you'll love to see. And then we're going to jump straight into a conversation with Paul around kind of the challenges we have with HR and how n8n can help with those, and then straight into a demo, practical demo, where you can actually learn, how to navigate it, what it looks like, how to build with it, etc. Because I'm sure that's what you're all here to see. And I'm going to start off with just introducing myself. So I'm Jessie Schofer. I don't know if you know me, but if you do, thank you for following me on LinkedIn. If you don't, I'm founder of Stacked, the HR tech database. I've been in transformation projects and then moved into HR leadership the last kind of 8 or so years. And yeah, I'm looking forward to today's session. And before I hand over quickly to Paul to introduce himself with a little bit more detail, I wanted to share that Paul is actually the reason I'm here today, because 8 years ago, just about, he was the one who took my transformation history and background and was like, that's interesting and transferable, and hired me into a HR and internal operations role. And that's how I got into HR, actually, and why I'm here today, because I probably wouldn't have done that pathway had it not been for Paul. So thank you so much for getting me here and into this topic that now I love. Please introduce yourself and all about you.
Still one of the best hires I ever made. So Yeah, very happy to be here. I'm Paul. If I hired somebody 8 years ago, means I'm a long time in HR, and I am. I'm 15 years now in HR. I have an IT background actually, and stumbled into it, and then had the chance to build a lot of cool companies, consultancies, worked with BCG on massive projects, and had a lot of cool things that I did in the last 15 years. And the last few years, I took the opportunity to work more with AI and dive deep into it. And now I'm a consultant for AI in HR, have a course online, give workshops, but also do consultative work around that. And I do love n8n with burning passion. A lot of people still ask why I'm not paid by them. I hope one day I will be.
Knock,
So if
knock.
anybody from n8n is listening, call me.
N8n. Paul's here. I'll join that too. Not an expert though. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited. You know, Paul is the person who this all came about because I was like, hey, Paul, can you teach me something about n8n? Like, I just want to upskill myself. And he's like, of course. And then I was like, hang on a minute. Why am I doing this for myself? Let's do this for everyone, because I feel like it's the thing everyone's, especially in Germany, like, but pretty much the world, everyone's talking about n8n. And I was like, let's actually see what we can do there. So really excited to have you here. And Shirley, I am so excited for you to share also about Shapes, your HRIS. You're an AI native HRIS. And yeah, please take over. Tell us about you, tell us about the vision, and show us a little bit about what the tool can do.
Sure. So hi, I'm Shirley. I'm a co-founder. I'm CPO of Shapes. So Shapes, like you said, we're building an all-in-one platform for core HR, but kind of designed for a new kind of world. Maybe I'll start with a quick show of hands. How many HR processes in your company are still mostly manual?
Oh, I bet you there's a lot. I think Paul and I can both speak and say a lot of processes are manual in HR.
Yeah, and I find it really interesting, and that's exactly why we are here today, because everyone around us kind of leveled up, changed their game. You know, developers don't write code anymore; they prompt cursor. Marketing people don't write emails; they design systems where you send hundreds of emails. But for people team, it's mostly the same, and that's exactly the gap that Shapes is built to solve. And I want to dive right in and show you a sneak peek of how it looks like. I won't do a full-blown demo, just to focus on what we are here to do today. So focus on automations and AI. And I'll start with showing an onboarding flow, integrated also with n8n to do even more cool stuff. And later I'll show our built-in agent to answer employee question, manager question, and also automate lots of HR work. And we'll finish with a sneak peek of what we are actually working on right now that can take it to the next level. So I will quickly share my screen.
Amazing. And everyone, please let us know if you can see the screen. If you can't hear us or if anything, just drop it in the chat, because then we can adjust for you.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. So that's Shapes. We call it like a people operating system because you can really customize it to your own needs, use only what you need and what you don't need. So here we have some apps, performance reviews, workflows, knowledge base. And I will start with automating an onboarding flow. So for that, we have workflows where you can automate a whole bunch of workflows from onboarding to maternity leave, promotion, and so on and so on. You can build it manually, but of course you can always use prompt to build everything. So just like you talk to a friend, you talk to Shapes and it created for you to save time and give you inspiration. Or if you're less technical, you can do it like that. I will use a pre-made one we don't have a lot of time. So what I did here, I already created a pre-onboarding flow, okay, where new hires get a form from us, and where they're asked to answer questions, what's your name? I don't know, maybe things like even some fun facts, favorite band, favorite food, and which laptop do you want? And then
Could you zoom in by any chance? People have said it's a little bit small to see.
Oh, yeah. Can you see it right now? Is it
I
better?
think that's better, yeah. Let's go with that.
Yeah, perfect. I can zoom in more. No,
That's fine.
Okay, so I asked employees to hire and to add their details even before they joined, and now we can start work and welcome them to our company. So I have here a task where IT person gets the laptop information and can already buy a new laptop. But we can also integrate with all other tools through n8n. Okay, so in this example, I created an n8n type of task where I choose to take this info, what people said, fun fact, bands, they like favorite food, and to do a very basic workflow inside n8n. So in Shapes, you choose which fields do you want, and then you send a Slack message that welcomes new hires and gives like a personal touch, which band they like, which food they like, some fun facts about them. So instead of doing all of that manually, you can do it through our platform and through n8n. Our users use it for a bunch of stuff, to send an automated, to create a Jira ticket, to buy a new laptop, or to do provisioning, deprovisioning, everything you can imagine that works from your HRIS to external platform, and you can do it super easily with n8n. So that's just one example of how you can automate workflows. That implies for every workflow you can imagine.
And Shirley, there's a few questions. One is, can you move the little box of our screen out of the middle? If you can put it to the side or make it smaller, I don't know if you can. And also someone asked if you do multi-country, multi-entity setup. And I think that's a yes from what I know about Shapes.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Maybe I can show something super quick.
And I think you're going to show us now your AI assistant or AI interface, right? Your agent.
Yes. Cool. So that's around automating processes, but there's also like the everyday noise. People ask you questions, employee ask you questions, managers ask you questions. You need to generate reports, dashboards, and so on. So for that, you can use our agent. So let's assume now I wear a hat of the employee, and I want to ask, do my, I don't know, vacation days get carry over from last year? So instead of asking you and kind of doing this context switch, taking you time, you can ask our agent and it will answer instead of you.
We even have someone from People Team at n8n here. So lovely that they joined.
Amazing.
That's great.
Okay. Cool. So
well, there's your connection.
about the funding. Cool. So yeah, I can. You can take up to 5 unused vacation days. You can ask things like, I don't know, and you can get a link for the actual policy. You can ask things like, can I work for a month from Spain? So these are employee type of questions or manager type of questions that can really save hundreds of hours. Like if you look on it on a yearly basis. Okay, so yeah, you can go work from Spain, but you kind of need your manager to improve it beforehand. But we don't only automate that. Okay, you can also create super simple reports, dashboards, processes through our agent. So let's assume I need a breakdown through gender of all of our employees. So I can just ask them, instead of creating a report, I can just ask, can you create a report of all of our employees, first name, last name, team, break it down.
And Shirley, we probably need to move on to the next bit because I don't want to run out of time for your next part, which is the new part that you're showing.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Cool. So that's our agent. Basically, you can do anything you can do manually, but through natural language to make it much faster. And now I want to show you a quick sneak peek of what we are working on right now that kind of takes it to the next level. So first of all, we are adding agents to the platform that can really surface information for you, so you won't have to look it up all day long. So let's imagine I wake up in the morning and I have my agents working for me. So some quick examples. The agent identified that the Greece paternity leave change needs an update. It can fix it for me. I can review it myself. And maybe I just launched a new remote work policy and people are talking about it, asking questions about it. There is a negative buzz around it. So they can draft a clarification message. They can even suggest improvements to the policy and do it for me. Another example around that is that it can, from all the data we have in the platform, they can also detect talents at risk. Okay, so here reflect in this example Sophie, which is a top performer, but the system identified that something is wrong with her. So now I want to drill down into her name, and I can see that she's a churn risk. Why? Because her salary is lower than benchmark, and also her time away pattern is really, really weird because she took a lot of half days recently. But from the other hand, we love her. She's a top performer. So let's say with this information, I can now go and get approval and wait for the comp cycle in order to give her a raise. But we don't want to do it manually because it requires lots of manual work. So we can also use the agent for that. To check the benchmarks and to really initiate the entire process, set meetings, schedule automatic meetings, prepare the contract, update all the system, notify leadership and whoever I can. And now only what's left is to tell Jane about her raise and hopefully to keep her in the company.
That's amazing. So it's bringing all the insights to you rather than waiting for, something to come, you to go looking for them, which I really like. I think that's part of the benefits of AI. It's like it's looking at the data and bringing it to the surface. So that's exciting what's coming.
Exactly.
Wow. And there's a couple of questions. Maybe there are things that we can make sure Shirley answers, and I'll put those answers back out to everyone via email. Because we want to jump on to the next part. So Shirley, if you want to wrap up your part, and then we'll jump over to the n8n part.
Yeah, it was just a very quick sneak peek. So feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I would love to answer any question and continue the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And appreciate you sponsoring this. We really appreciate that we can, make sure learning is accessible for everyone. So that being said, we'll talk to you again soon, Shirley. And now we move over to Paul. So Paul, we're here because you're the n8n expert that I know working in HR who actually fully understands HR's problems. And why is n8n a solution for these problems? Like, what are the problems and why are we even here talking about n8n? I think that's the first thing that I want to discuss. By the way, everyone, we will get into the demo. It will be like a couple minutes that we need to just set the context, and then we're going to jump into the tool. So bear with us.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges for HR in general is how much things we have to do that have nothing to do with people, right? Contracts, writing contracts, prioritizing things, just messages that we get so many. So the average workday is rarely talking to people, unfortunately. It is sending a lot of messages, receiving a lot of messages, reading a lot of stuff, and sometimes just creating slides or Excel sheets. And I think that is where n8n goes hard, is what I wanted to say, but it's really, really interesting, right? Because it takes over, obviously, the automation. So it connects all your systems together, which is already helpful because usually we push so much from system to system. And it can orchestrate it can take over your agent work. So AI agents that can actually work with unstructured text, other data, and give output without you needing to work too much with it. Which means at the end of the day, you do have time again to do things with people, which usually is why people go into HR.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that's what I'm seeing a lot is having been in, leadership in HR, a lot of the problem is the noise. It is all this like people don't realize how much workload. I mean, all of the people here in this call probably do, because they know what it's like to be inundated with questions and messages and manual copy paste and data that doesn't, integrate. So you've got to manually do it, and just it never stops. Building dashboards like at the last minute, but having to do it manually because, there is no other way. Now it's like we actually have the chance to do things with clicks of button. I think the systems we've had traditionally haven't been able to serve us. And that's why things like n8n are useful, I think, for this connecting, like you said, connecting this to connecting that and pushing stuff, because the tools we have aren't able to do that for us right now. I do think Shirley's team is working on some pretty cool stuff in there to try to make it actually powerful enough that you don't have to move outside of the system. But until then, we have tools like n8n, and also n8n is usable across everything, which is fantastic. I think people are sometimes a bit scared of n8n because it, potentially requires coding, or it's a little bit more complex. You need to be more technical. Is that true? What should people think? What would you tell people who want to look into it?
I mean, it's a great question. First of all, I want to take away the fear. There is not coding required to use n8n. You can set it up as a cloud, as any other software as a service. You don't need to download anything. You don't need to upload anything. You just use it as any other program in the web interface. And you have the chance to use code, but you don't need to, right? There are multiple applications you can build or automations you can build without ever touching, writing, or looking at a line of code. And everybody, it doesn't matter if engineer or HR manager who never even saw any kind of code, can work with it from day one and can build really, really cool stuff already.
And so you taught me quite a little bit about orchestration. And I think we're both on the same page about orchestration, that the future of, HR, the roles are going to change, and orchestration is going to be part of that, requirement and skill set that we need. Maybe talk a little bit about what that means and how it, in the context also of maybe what we're going to do today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think orchestration, sorry, my laptop is acting up. For orchestration, there is two school of thoughts. One is obviously from an engineering perspective, we're not looking at this. What we're really looking at is that agents, independent AI modules, take over work. That can be really, really awesome, right? But I think every HR manager, every person in people roles immediately goes to, oh no, the data. Oh no, what's going to happen with it? What mistakes going to happen? And that's one of the things where the idea of orchestration works, right? HR people are already really, really good at reading challenges, seeing ahead of probable problems that could occur in data, in interdepartmental communication, etc. And somebody needs to look at this, right? And this is where I think HR has an amazing chance now with tools like n8n, but also in general with AI agents becoming so prevalent, to take over, first of all, a look in the future, right? Making sure security, but also compliance is still adhered to. And on the other side, also working together with departments. I think Jess already said really well. Even if we have an amazing program like Shapes, which takes over all the automation in HR, you still need to work with the finance department. You still need to work with your tax advisor. And your tax advisor may never have any AI tool in their life, right? So you can use other implementations there. And I think HR is the department which knows the most about how departments work together. And that's where orchestration comes from, right? A person needs to take charge of this. This is not something that just can be left to an LLM or to nothing. And this is why I think n8n is so cool. And orchestration is the actual future for AI and HR.
I'm totally on board with that. I mean, at the end of the day, someone needs to build the workflows. They need to adjust and debug the workflows when they don't work, or if there's an adjustment as the business grows, you need to check that they're executing. You need to check that, maybe want to add steps. So that whole oversight is going to be like the building and oversight of agents and AI tooling and automations is going to be a huge part of HR in the future. And one side of that is the technical side, which I think we're going to see today. And I think then the other side, which I think is just as important, is the understanding of where and how to build the processes, right? Because the tools are there, but if you don't know what good looks like, or we don't know how to design, workflows and automations to achieve, good outcomes or good employee experience or achieve what the business needs, and that's going to be a challenge too. So I think these are the two sides of the future of HR, the way we need to have skill sets. Today we're looking more into technical, and there's definitely things coming up where I'm going to talk more on the other side of things. But why don't we get open n8n and have a look? Like, why don't we jump in? We're going to go through the tool. We're going to look at, different kind of start from the beginning and get more complex as we go through. Please drop any questions you have in the box. And to start with, I'd love to know who has used n8n before. I mean, like, who's got an account, signed up, and actually like tried to build, played around, and done something already. That's a yes, and a no would be I've never like logged in. I've never really like actually, seen the tool. Drop that in while we got ourselves organized, and it'll give us a bit of an idea of the everyone here and where we're at. Make sure we just zoom in a little bit too, Paul, because
I tried. If it's not enough, I can zoom in more. But
so
I think in this instance, it's really hard to zoom too deep in. I think that
okay,
that's
that's good.
possible.
No,
but later on, we will zoom in even deeper. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Great.
So yeah. Do you want me to start or just waiting for a few questions?
No, I think jump in. A lot of people here saying no, haven't used it. Some people said using. I would say there's more not using than using. A bit of playing around.
I think that's the general feeling I get from people in HR, right? And what I see in my consult projects, but also in general, that people do have heard about n8n. Some tried it, some play around with it, but most people still didn't yet take the plunge and go into it. So makes total sense. So here we have just the portal to start to everything. And I will just go through this so you see what happens the moment you open n8n. You just see an overview. Pretty much, as I said, every other SaaS, a lot less pictures, obviously, but the idea is here's just an overview over every project you work in. And it's incredibly easy to start a new one. Don't be confused for the numbers in the top. This is just for me to share stuff. So this is not my actual account. Obviously, there's a lot of customer data there, so I can show this. But these are still very functional flows we will look at. And first, I want to show you what happens if you just create a workflow to take that mystery out immediately. Because essentially, it does this. You can either start from scratch with your first step, or you can actually use the relatively new AI builder from n8n directly, which is similar to things like Lovable, Replit, etc., which will build the workflow for you. I personally have okay experiences with it, but I think especially for very simple automations, it's a very, very cool start. So as we now looked into what happens if you start with something, I would go directly into one of the workflows.
Yeah, so you can see that it's like very user-friendly here. And people are saying some people have tried to build things also in recruitment. I'd love to know if people are willing to share what they've already tried to build in recruitment or HR with n8n before. That would be really interesting. Just drop it in the chat as we go through.
All right. So, I mean, this is what a workflow essentially looks like. I will just show it zoomed out real quick. I will zoom in so we can actually see stuff, but this is how they look like. As you see, it's very visual. The idea is that you actually can see what happens. If we would actually execute this workflow, we would see everything, right? What is happening when, where. But let's go into this. I think this is a problem almost every HR manager, every person in people knows. You get a ton of messages from a ton of different sources, and you now need to prioritize. That usually either happens of somebody said that is really important, or you think this makes sense, but sometimes just things drop down. And that's obviously not something we want. So what this agent essentially, or this workflow essentially does, is capture all those messages and then make sure to send you the ones you actually need to take care of. And we will go one-on-one into this, what is happening here. And we start with the left side, which is just, as I said, capturing messages from different sources. And what they use in n8n is called a node. So all of these small squares and almost squares are nodes. And there are two different types. One is a trigger. And this is things like this here, trigger every minute. This means n8n now knows to every minute when this thing is running, every time, every minute that's run, it needs to start getting messages from the Slack channel. And this is essentially just the idea to get data from your Slack channel. So as you can see, what is happening here is it takes over your credentials. This means just your login data. You have seen this so many times, especially with authentications in, you want to connect your LinkedIn account with, I don't know, Personio or something, want to log in into some special business thing, and you see it pops up and it asks you, hey, can this app use all those functions? And it's the same thing here, essentially, with most of the things that are already pre-built. When that is done, you just choose a resource, which in this case means channel, file, message, right? What do you want to actually have? This is specific for this node, the get message for Slack, and then the operation. Operation may be a bit confusing for the start, but essentially it just tells you what is happening and what this needs to do. And in this case, get, a word we know just means we need to get some data. In this case, we take it from a list. Unfortunately, this is not connected to an HR channel, but a sales channel. But as you can see, I can choose the channel I want, and I can say, for example, every minute it checks the general channel. Are there things we need to look out for? If you have a specific HR channel, it works really, really well. But most of the things I get at least come through email. And this is why we have this one. This reads your Gmail account every minute. One problem I always have is that most emails do not come from internal employees. So it would be really, really annoying if n8n would get every email that I have. So what you usually have are filters in some nodes, for example, this one, which literally says only the ones from PK Consulting AI, which is my web domain. And this lovely star here is something that so many people will use in general. It's just called a wildcard, which means everything that could be before that sign is in there, right? If it's Paul, if it's Jess, if it's Robert. But it can only read the ones that are actually from an address called from PK Consulting AI. Did you have a question? Sorry, I don't want to rush through.
No, it's good. And so I see here, so you've got like the screen set up and like you've got this first step of the flow, right? Capture messages from sources. So you've really broken down the flow of the automation in a way that's very logical. And why is that important?
Why is it important to break down the things logical in the sense of how I explain it or how it's done?
Like how it's visualized here and like how you do the steps. Like why do you have like, you know, how you've got it? Why did you design it? How you've designed it? Like what's important about how you visualize this? Because I think you visualized it in a way that's quite nice and it helps, I guess.
Well, I mean, there are two things. Unfortunately, there's an n8n person in the chat, so they will probably call me out if I say I did this, but there's literally a button that tells you to tidy up, and it just makes it nice and clean. But in general, you start with things on the left because that's how we read, right? Other people like to start from the top, but there's essentially no difference. Important is just what happens in the steps in between and what they connect to each other, right? We always start with a trigger. We always need that it finds something. Beforehand, when Shirley showed the n8n workflow from her, this was just waiting for something to happen in Shapes. And then something happens, right? So we always say, if this, then that. It's usually, if this happens, then this needs to happen from your side. And your side in this case is n8n.
Yeah, it's got to be a trigger of some form. And we've got quite a few questions. Maybe we answer those before we move on. What kinds of errors or malfunctions have you seen when rolling out n8n workflows? Like especially in HR, have yours like had problems, or what are the bugs?
So bugs are usually not under n8n. There are some n8n bugs. It's just normal in those things. Then you usually have to find a good workaround. The cool thing is n8n has probably one of the most active communities of tools I ever saw in my life. So you will probably find somebody that can help you very, very quickly. But what happens a lot is if you work with tools that don't necessarily already have the node inside of n8n, you have to connect to something called an API, which is an application programming interface. This is literally just a connection between two softwares, right? Or in this case, two web end bases. So if I, for example, want to, from Personio or any other HRS, get all the holidays, or probably from Shapes as well. Also, I don't know how much they take it over with just AI. So I just take any example. Let's see that you want to see somebody is sick. Then you create something through the API, which is just called a webhook. So it takes it from the web when it happens. And then this knows what needs to happen, right? So this would be the trigger. But then we also need to get that data, because at that point, we just know somebody is sick. They have an ID that is unreadable for a human. So we now need to ask the Personio API back, hey, who is behind this ID and how are they sick? And in all those steps, you essentially have to always work with what they give you, right? They give you documentation, etc.
So what does Personio push when you access Personio? What does it allow you to take out, or what kind of data formats it takes out? They can be sometimes causing issues or difficult to work with, potentially, like whatever tool it is, example Personio. That's where you can have malfunction sometimes, like with these setups where it's not when it's not a preset like this. These are preset, like you went in and did the trigger and it already had the like connection to Gmail, for instance, where there's no preset integration, let's call it. That's where you can sometimes find it becomes difficult, or you should look at it a bit more.
Absolutely. Right. There's more work to be done, and that can just give you complex problems, right? That's always what it is. If tools don't already work with each other, something can happen in between. And most of the time it is user error. Most of the time it's because I forgot to put in something that I should have, or I didn't use the right credential. But again, usually, you can find somebody that helps you. You can share a lot of these things just in the n8n forums, and there will be 10 people that tell you what to do, which is really cool.
How do you join the n8n forums?
Good question. I usually am just a reader because I'm a bad person, but
you can just find them online.
You can just go to the n8n website, and they have the forums there directly, the community tab.
Very cool. So that's good for everyone who needs help and support. There's a big community of help and support. And there's a lot of questions here, very, very, I'm going to say they're very specific and detailed about this particular workflow. So what I'm going to do is let Paul finish the workflow step through and like each of the things to show you more of the interface and how to think about that. And then if we have time at the end, we'll come back to some of these questions. And if not, we can answer them offline. So let's keep going with your workflow steps.
Cool. Then let's go into normalization. So normalization is a process of different things come in, different text comes in, but we want it to all be the same, which makes sense, right? Slack messages look different than Gmail messages or emails. They're differently structured, etc. So all we want is this small LLM model here, do nothing else but find it out. And don't be intimidated by what you're looking at here. This is a JSON file, and we'll explain what that means. I will just grow it a little bit. I hope you can see still it on the right side. What this is essentially a list that is readable by humans and very well readable by machines. It's kind of a trade-off, right? It's similar to how Excel or CSV functions, but CSVs have a lot of problems in their accuracy, while this is very, very accurate, and machines always know what to do with it. So, but at the end of the day, it's human language. You can see here, I tell it I want a source, and those sources need to be from Gmail, Slack, or from Form or another source, right? Just an example. Maybe do something like this. For an LLM, it knows, okay, so it definitely needs source. Source ID, because I want to obviously have the not the same things happening multiple times, the same messages, etc. So this is essentially what this normalization does, it's reading the Slack messages, it's reading the Gmail messages, and says, I want this to be exactly in this way. I want to put it into the source text, etc.
So
At the
it's
moment,
so wait, so I'm looking at this interface. You've got all the data coming in from your sources. They're all different. They're all different formats. You're like, oh my God. And if you pull that into something, you'd look at it and you'd be like, I can't do anything with this. So this normalization part of the workflow is telling the tool, telling tech, telling AI to like help you clean it more or less into a format that's more usable for the next step of the workflow. And to do that, you're using a JSON format here of step to process the information, to tell it what to do in that format. Now, I'm pretty sure most people here in this chat have not worked and written JSON in this format before. Are there any tips on, is this something that we need to learn? Are there tips on what we can do here around, like, if I don't know it, can I just ChatGPT it? Is it that easy?
Yeah, it is. ChatGPT knows JSON really well. LLMs in general like JSON because, again, LLMs are much closer to a machine than a human. So usually you can just say, hey, I need a JSON with this, possibly for n8n already, and it will usually do this for you. I know how to program, and I still do this because I'm inherently lazy, which is the reason why I work in automation. So
and also that's important. So you're working with n8n, but you're also going out of n8n to use other AI tooling to support you with maybe more of the, let's say, inverted commas, complex technical parts where you either are too lazy to write it yourself or want to have speed or want some help with actually formatting and how to get that into a format that you need for n8n. So
yeah,
that's great.
bullseye.
That's great to know. Because I think some people think, that you only, okay, if you're in n8n, that's what you're using. It's like, actually, all these tools do lots of various different things, and we can combine them to be faster, better, smarter, learn. Of course, if we don't know, let's say we don't know JSON, we can't query it and check it and criticize it, right? We're just going to have to take what it gives us. So it is beneficial, I guess, for us to learn that in HR.
So what you should learn is concepts, not execution, right? I think this is really important. I think every programmer will tell you the least important part of their knowledge base is code. The most important part is the concepts, how things work. And the moment you understand how JSON works, you don't need to know how to structure it or in any way write this down, because again, you can just ask an LLM. But if you later need to, and I will go into this in the next step, need to put things into exactly a structure that can be read by machines, which is in automation the most important thing. You need JSONs usually. And I will also go into the next thing because this checks uniqueness and it kind of shows why we do this. Because as you can see here, this reads values. And this JSON output, it looks complicated, but it's essentially, I picked this from the left side. It's right now not possible because we didn't have the, we can look at the variables that were sent last time. And we can just see here JSON, this is what it is. And I want to have the resume URL or the mode or whatever. Wait, those are very different things. Sorry. In the normalized message, so we don't have to see it, but usually you can see here this JSON output as a list, right? That's why it says JSON, table, or schema. Schema is just looks nice and ordered like this, so you know exactly what it is. A table, you will see exactly what Excel shows, and a JSON is what I just showed you. And then you can just, with n8n, drag and drop stuff. So this is relatively simple for beginners because I didn't write any of this, right? I just had the source ID, so the source ID from the Gmail or the Slack, plus the actual source, which in this case is Gmail or Slack, put this together, dragged it in here, said plus, drag the next thing in, and now I have a unique ID for all messages. Because at the end of the day, I want to see, because this is the database node, which is relatively new, which just checks, hey, is this already in a database? Did you already have this specific message used in any way? And the moment that doesn't happen, we put it into the database, obviously, to check it the next time again.
So it's just
that is all this process.
So you're basically telling it, look for make it into make the text into readable format, and then
Yeah.
check if there's any unique IDs that are duplicated. And if they're duplicated, don't duplicate it. And if it's missing, then add it. I mean, that's logical, I think. So a lot of this is actually thinking about what you want the system to do for you. Like, what are those steps? Because you have to know you want to create this, you'll have to know, like, the data came in messy, I want to clean it. You have to know, oh, there could be duplications, I don't want duplicates, right? So you have to have that thought process as you're building the workflow. And so half of the battle isn't even the tech, I think. It's actually understanding workflow and process design and what are those steps that you break it down in a logical way to then build it into the system, right? And
Yeah.
that might take a couple of goes, I imagine.
Of course. So what I just did, for example, I pressed sneakily the little play button because I wasn't sure if I have an active email in this email account, but I do. So what this does is it just started this, and you can see this is not readable, right? There's no chance this is easy to understand.
Yeah.
So it's an absolute mess. You can't understand it. The machine is also confused. So this is what a normalized message does, right? We can just execute this step, and it automatically, the stringify here just means, hey, read this not as this complete mess, but just as text. This takes obviously a second because it's an LLM. So this sends it to ChatGPT or to OpenAI and says, hey, there's this thing that I need to do. In this case, normalize it into a JSON. Please do it for me. And now this is much better structured, right? It's a lot less text. And this now gets sent here. And this is what I mean with drag and drop, right? I want the source. I can just drag it from here. And now it doesn't matter how many things there are as items, it will always take the source and put this into the next step, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this is what I meant with drag and drop.
Yeah, that's cool. And you said it pushes data to ChatGPT. So we do have to be careful of what kind of data is coming in here, what your company
Absolutely.
policies are in compliance, like you're not putting in secret data. So it is something to look at when you're building these flows, just to be cognizant of what, if you're using n8n, you're not just using n8n, you're also using LLM processing. Is there any way to get around that, like some of the personal data things? Paul, you've done some fun things there, I think.
Oh yeah, fun things is good. So there are multiple ways you can do it, right? As a small company, it's always a bit harder. You probably need to check a service where you have a good contract with them, where they don't use your data, and you need to trust them, because you can essentially choose your chat model. As you can see here, this looks very confusing, so don't look at it too much. But you can essentially change this if you click the replace to pretty much all the chat models there are, right? Pretty much is relative because there's so many, but here's DeepSeek, there's Bedrock. And as you already know, DeepSeek can be used as open source. So you could host this DeepSeek endpoint on your own server and then combine this with this, right? So that your data never even leaves your own environment. So
what you're
there's
saying
very,
is you
very
can
nice
host the
possible.
LLM on your own company servers if the IT decide to do that, and then that can be connected to people's n8n workflows, and then data's not leaving your servers, basically.
Exactly.
There you go. So it's possible.
So there's a lot of ways to do it. I myself even built for companies on-prem, so servers that are not online, that are just on where they're at.
So on premises.
On premises.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so there's a difference between servers that are in the cloud and servers that store data, like where they're not in, like someone else owns the infrastructure and you pushing it into their infrastructure, which is God knows where it's housed in the world, on what land, because there will be something hosting it somewhere. But rather, your company has like their own servers in, these cupboards, and you open them, they all looks like a technical robot case. That's on premises, and they're your servers and your data storage that you can then actually host your own stuff. So then it's really like lockdown type compliance, right? So there are ways to still utilize AI in a way that's safer. Obviously, your company has to decide to do that, right? So I'm just flagging all these things because I think, it's important to say these tools are powerful, but it's also important to understand how the tools work and where data is going before we just like jump in and start, connecting things up.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Always be a bit mindful of this, right? You don't necessarily know what OpenAI does. You obviously have contracts, etc., but clear this up with your IT. If you already use n8n in the organization, ask them which models are allowed. Usually they can even just say you can only use those models in your n8n. So this should be something you check first before just sending data wherever you want.
All right. So you've got your next part of the flow, and we've got about 13 minutes. So we want to make sure we get through this.
Then let me go quick, because this is the most interesting part, and we're literally almost at the end. So this is the prioritization agent. This is probably what everybody wants to actually know about agentic work. So what this does is it uses everything from the last few steps, right? It puts it in here and sends it, as you know, like a prompt, like the user message you send to ChatGPT. It does pretty much the same. It should classify it, make summaries, categories, etc. So I told it, make it very, very clear if this makes sense, if this is good, like with the Eisenhower matrix, which means it's in 4 different quadrants: urgency, importance, effort, and risk.
So you put a long, very detailed prompt about what you want that output to look like. Once it's like, what do you want to do? Now you've got a readable output in text form. It's like having a big PDF and you're like, summarize it. This is prompting.
Exactly.
This is your prompt, but everyone knows.
This is,
so
well, just real quick, this is the user message. It's not the whole prompt.
Okay.
So that is actually really important to understand, because what you give your agents are system prompts usually. So these are usually very, sometimes really, really detailed. That is when they work really well. For this one, I just used a very small one just to show it, right? How it usually is structured, that they are an HR operation triage assistant, what they need to read, and that they only should use JSON. If you're not confident, set confidence level low, right? So you can decide, confidence level is super low. Maybe it's thinking of stuff that doesn't actually happen, and never invent facts. Usually this actually works. It's weird that this sentence does anything, but it does actually work. So this is really, really important that you have 2 different message system, and the system message is where I usually put a lot of text in. This case is just an example to make it easier to read.
So you're giving it the guardrails of how the system needs to behave and the role it should take and the perspective it should take when looking at, when trying to execute your output. So one is about the output. What do you want the output to look like? Which is what you said. I want it to be prioritized. I want it to be like this. And then you're giving it the brain of how to look at that task in the system settings, more or less. It's very interesting.
So, and what this just does real quick is just making, again, this, it's a nice JSON and forces it to be in the JSON we want. And now what do we actually do with all of this, right? Because this is a cool data, we now need to do something. What I did, I love Notion and I love ticketing system. So I used all of this to create cards in Notion. I will go there real quick to show you how this looks like. But I also used a filter node, which is super, super nifty. And in this case, it just reads the importance that the chatbot told me, the assistant told me. If it's over 9, send it to me directly to Slack, right? So I get a message every time there's something in any way that is over 9 of importance, so I can decide, oh, I need to do something with it. But all the other ones end up in this lovely board. So this is just how it looks like at the end, right? I get very nice cards that are well structured. It tells me what do I need to do, quick title, a description, maybe some helpful things, right? This, for example, I told it, please always give me something I can write back, because again, lazy by nature. So I can just copy paste this and send this through Slack and be like, hey, yeah, on it, I will revoke access today, and the priority level. So I can actually use the priority level to know when to do something, right? As you see here, those are all do now in the top, and then plan and lower on the bottom.
Great.
So super, super cool, quick way of making sure your prioritization is correct.
I mean, and I feel like that's the kind of, helpful automations that really take away stress, right? Because if you can set that up the first time, someone orchestrates and oversees that, workflow, and whatever you want to call it, workflow, automation, agent, whatever. Someone oversees that, then you actually, instead of focusing on like coordinating, like, oh, that email over here and that email, you're actually focused on answering the questions, right? So all that time and effort, you do the time and effort up front in this kind of workflow that you've done an example here. And then that is done, right? Obviously, there's adjustments, there's bugs, you want to change it, you want to add to it, which is very easy because you can see the flow, you can add to steps. But more or less, then you have a prioritized Notion board of what tickets to answer, right? And you start having data, and you start being able to get back to people quickly and understanding all the challenges. And I think that's where, there's so much you can do in HR with automation. So just one use case. So that was clear for me. I don't know if that was good for everyone here. Please in the chat, let us know if that was helpful, if that was useful. Is any questions left on that? I think Paul, you wanted to maybe talk a little bit earlier. We talked about that people think we need to code, and you said you don't necessarily need to code, and we've seen that there's the JSON format is like an Excel or a CSV kind of like text formatter, but you can also code. But that would be like the next level, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can show real quick just how that kind of workflow would look like. Here I did a priority list for, no, wait, that's the wrong one, sorry. I did a Haufe article. Haufe is just a German website for law. And this looks a lot more intimidating. What it does essentially is look at my policies, look at the changes in the German law regarding employment and labor, and tells me, hey, you should probably do something about what is written in this one part of your policies. And here I do use code. And most of the time here you see this lovely, how you say, parenthesis to note, which always is code. And these look confusing. But essentially, this is just there to make very, very confusing written things much, much easier to read, right? So I use this to, here it's removing ad containers, right? You notice if you see an article from any website, if I would now take everything on that website, just literally every part of text and look at it, there would obviously be a lot of stuff that I don't actually want. And this code just strips it. So that is essentially what it does. But again, this is very, very deep. You could probably do this without coding if you take the time. But at that point, just ask ChatGPT to create this part of code, because I don't know JavaScript, I know Python, and I mostly just ask ChatGPT to do this and then try to troubleshoot with the knowledge I have. But at the end of the day, you can always use an external chatbot to help you, or even the internal one from n8n.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's a good tip. I think someone here had a question. They've been doing several workflows with n8n, started to get limited by non-tech background, HTTP request, code node. What is the first steps? Like, what would you suggest first steps? Was it what you've just kind of suggested or something else?
Sorry, that I needed to, I didn't quite understand.
Sorry. There's a question that says, I'm starting to get limited by my non-tech background around HTTP request / code node. I mean, I don't know what he's necessarily stuck with. But I think first steps when it comes to being limited by your tech skills is probably start experimenting with your AI. Or I would also say, look at like, I would try to up, like my answer is I would go and upskill in that space. So whatever I'm getting stuck with, I would first ask an LLM, as long as there's no confidential data. And then I would also go like search out YouTubes of like how-tos, like webinars like this and things like that that are on the web. There's a lot of information, like a lot, like how-tos, beginners, I mean, we've got to take control of that. And I think that's really important that we take control of our own learning. So if you're feeling limited, then, don't feel scared to like jump out of the box. We don't need to know everything.
Yeah, I think that's already very, very good advice. I think in general, as I said in between, learn concepts, right? You don't need to be a coder. My Python skills are horrid. Like, there's a reason why it never goes into production in the company, and I'm a recruiter at the end of the day, or was a recruiter for most of my career. But what I do know is how code works, and learn that, right? There's a lot of articles, there's a lot of videos, and Jessie actually said it really well. Ask ChatGPT, how does this actually work? What is happening if I want to do that? Can you comment on the code what it does? And then you will learn, right? This is how I learn everything. I can't do courses because my ADHD will go crazy when I listen to someone for longer than 10 minutes in front of me. So I need
Anyone
to
still
encourage
listening,
that.
thank you.
So sorry. But yeah, it's generally something where I learn the most when I just try it. I just want to jump into it. And coding or n8n is really cool about it because you said it well. The code node is just one small part. And if you have a problem that it can solve, ask ChatGPT first and then ask ChatGPT, okay, why did you do that? Why does that help? And it goes incredibly well.
Yeah. No, I really like that. That's great. So I think we're coming to the end of our session. I mean, I really hope this was useful and educational and opens, everyone's eyes to, n8n, that it's not as scary as we think it is. I really think that it's quite powerful, well, very powerful. That's why it's got such a big following and it's such a, successful tool. There's a lot of questions in the chat we didn't get to. I'll try to capture all of those, and if I can, respond via email to everyone who registered. And everyone suggested some things that we could maybe look at putting together, Paul, like use case examples or things like that. Maybe it's something we want to do or can have time for. We can discuss it. But at the end of the day, thank you everyone for joining. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you again to Shirley from Shapes for showing us their product. I'm really excited for what's coming next. And to everyone who spent your time sitting here for an hour listening to us, thank you again. Share your LinkedIn, get in the chat. You're all here. You're all trying to learn together. So you may as well share your LinkedIn and connect. You can also, reach out to myself, Paul, Shirley. I dropped our LinkedIns also in the chat. And we will hopefully see you for the next webinar. So keep up to date. You can find all of that on our Luma channel where you signed up for this one. And that's all for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Thank you.